Welcome to the AAP-01 Delta Kit assembly video. Today I will show you how to assemble everything, and I hope you have fun watching it. Alright, let's start with the assembly of the whole thing. Here you can see overview of the parts you will need. Very important are the screws, so let's start with that. You will need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You will need 8 M3 screws by the length of 20 millimeters. Those are countersunk screws. So make sure you buy them. You will need 6 M3 nuts. You will need the 2 M3 screws that come with the AAP that holds your regular barrel on it. This is a M5. Yes, it's a M5 screw, M5 times 8 millimeter screw. And there are 2 little springs here. It's very hard to see, but I took them from like a regular pen. So make sure you get 2 of these springs. You should find pens in your house. You can use some of them. You will see here, this is the stock. This is the charging handle. This is the receiver. Those are the 2 rods that you will need for the stock assembly. Those are a centimeter in diameter, 10 millimeters. Make sure it's 10 millimeters. And I believe 25 centimeters in length, 20 or 25. I will let you know on the screen. You have the bolt housing, you have the grip rod, you have the bolt pin, you have a barrel, you have another part that connects to the charging handle, and you have like these 2 buttons you will need later to lock the stock in position. Yeah, so that's all you need right now. And of course your AAP, preferably disassembled already. That means the top part, right? Like don't disassemble the bottom part, just disassemble the upper receiver. For the next part we will be assembling the stock. You need these 3 parts, as you can see here. You have the printed out stock part, and important are the steel tubes that you should have purchased already. The steel tubes need grooves like this. You will have to carve them in yourself. I used a file for this, a normal metal file. When you buy them in steel, like you could probably use aluminum as well, because the steel might be a little overkill. I feel aluminum would hold up just fine, but if you want to go steel, I recommend using like an angle grinder to do this. This took like ages, so yeah, you should probably do that. It's important for the first grooves here to be around 5 centimeters. You can see like 54 millimeters, around 5 centimeters till like the start of the groove. The groove should be like around a centimeter. Oh, like 8 mm, like the part that will go in is 7 millimeters wide, so like at least do 7 millimeters, but I would go for around like 8, 9, 10 millimeters. So you should do this. Any further grooves you put in are to your liking. Like you don't have to put them in for it to work. For the whole thing to work, these grooves are important. These 2, this and this. This is from like an earlier attempt at a different kind of locking mechanism. Like ignore that. Yeah. Now all that's left is assembling. Fairly easy. You just put these tubes in here. I sadly cannot guarantee that these holes will perfectly fit your tube, depending on like what kind of tube you got, what the tolerances are with that. So you will have to try to get it in there. It should work fine if like your tube is around 10 millimeters wide. This one should be even a little less. What is this? Yeah, you can see 9 point. Oh, 10 millimeters, perfect. 10 millimeters wide. If it's 10 millimeters wide, it should work perfectly. Other than that, what I found works good is using a drill. You put the drill in here, the tube in the drill, and then you just shove this in here and start turning it. And this way it will heat up the plastic a little bit, do the friction, and it will be easier to get it in there. So that might be a good solution for you. If it is too loosely, what I recommend is epoxy glue. whenever in this build something doesn't want to hold up, like I recommend epoxy glue, yeah, just put it in here, glue it together, and then this should be fine. So stock assembly fairly easily. Alright, once everything is in, you want to make sure that the notches are facing inwards. This is the most important step here. Just like make sure that these notches are showing inwards, and then the stock assembly is done. For the assembly of the bolt housing, we'll need obviously the bolt housing 3D printed part. This is where the 4 M3 screws will go in that connect the bolt housing to the receiver, right? So make sure everything is cleaned up well, especially like these cavities for the buttons later. These need to be, well, not well cleaned, but like make sure there's no filament left and no support structure in there. That's important. Yeah, so far the first thing you have to do is put these M3 nuts into these places. They should stick in there. Yeah, then we can just start putting our assembled stock into this. Alright, so before we put the stock in, we will need to assemble the lock buttons. You will need the 2 little springs. It goes in here. There's like a hole down there. I don't know if you can see in the video, but like the spring should go in there. And you take one of these buttons, you just push them in like this. You do the same on the other side. Spring in to this. Then now it's a little tricky. You have to push in both buttons, hold them like this, and take the stock and slide it in. Then you can let go of the whole thing. Now it should lock in place. And to release it, you just press both buttons at the same time and it can slide back. If you like, earlier I said you can add more grooves in it. If you want, you can put one in this position, you know, so like it doesn't slip off. I would probably add this later to mine. So like when you run, it doesn't just come out of the closed position. But yeah, it should look like this right now. Now, what you want to do is add the M3 screws. And what I find very helpful is using like a thicker Allen wrench, Allen key, I don't know how you call it, and push them through all the way like this. And you do this for all 4 of them. Now you can see all 4 screws are in. What is left now is you take your charging handle, the side with the groove with the channel needs to go down, it needs to face downwards, and you just push it in like this. It should click right in. Now for the receiver assembly, you will need your receiver and you will need the upper of your AAP. I disassembled mine already. The barrel, the shell, and the bolt is right here, so you want to take all of this apart. First things first, you take the barrel, you shove it in here, just like this. Then, what you want to do is take the shell, you slide it in from the back like this. Don't try to put it in like this, it doesn't work. You have to slide it in, and you will slide it over the barrel, like this, and the barrel will turn a little bit. So like, you have to like, wiggle it around a little bit, but like in the end, it should all fit like this. Now you will take the 2 screws that will come with the AAP and they will go right into this and this hole. Now that that is screwed in, what you want to do is take the bolt, slide it back in through the back, and now what we're going to do is put in the bolt pin to secure everything together. To do this, you will need the bolt pin, 2 M3x20 screw, and like your receiver. You will slide this in just like this. It should click in right like this, and then you screw it down with these two screws. And then when you're done, this bolt shouldn't be able to come out again. For the next step, we will use, I don't have a name for it yet, it's a bolt carrier, I don't know, like the connecting piece between the charging handle and the bolt. This piece right here, and it will go in there, and you will secure it with the M5 screw that I showed you earlier, with the M5 times 8 screw. Now it should look like this. This is secured, and now what's left to do is to put in the barrel. Don't worry, yours will look a little different than this. This is still like the first version that I printed, and I printed it a little different. Like, you will have an extra thread right here that you will thread into this, but like, just screw it in here and should be fine. There will be two kinds of barrels. There will be this one with a flash hider that you can attach over this barrel, and there will be just a adapter barrel that you can use any kind of 14mm counterclockwise flash hider, suppressor, tracer, whatever you want on it. So keep that in mind. For the last part of the receiver assembly, you will need these 4 nuts, and you will put them in here. I feel like, or in my experience, this was the most tricky part. You want to make sure that the point, like the point of the nut is pointing upwards and downwards perfectly. This way you can fit them in correctly. This is a little tough, so take your time with that. Make sure they sit in there perfectly. Now we can add together the bolt housing and stock and the receiver. To do this, you will need to pull out the bolt a little bit so this thing goes up, and it goes right under here into this charging handle, into the notch, like this. And then you just push it all together like this. And now that's all left to do is to screw in the M3 nuts that are already in here into the, not the nuts, the screws into the nuts. Just screw it all together. Now these two halves should be screwed together. You can see they are connected to each other. So right now everything should look like this. Now there's only really one more step to do. You take the lower of your AAP, you click it in right like this, and if you like the look of this itself, this should work just fine. It should be stable enough in there, but like, if you want it a little more stable and you like the look of it, you can use this extra piece. It will slide in into here, into the bottom of your AAP, and we'll screw in right here. Remember, we already put in the M3 nuts in here in an earlier step, so now that's all left to do is just to take the remaining 2 M3 screws and put them in here, and then you should be done. Alright, and this completes the build of the AAP Delta Kit. You can test its function now. Does this stock stay in place? Hopefully it does. You can put it back in. You can check if the charging handle works. It should work like this. Nice. And yeah, I hope you found this video helpful. I'll see you next time.